I suppose a modern-day pioneer would be someone who contributes to society, that builds up the community, that is a part of the community rather than just a patron, and they actually work to make their surroundings, their family, and everyone else a little better.
We have active today pioneers in that they do hard things. They live their lives so that they're ready to take those challenges as they come from whomever or wherever, and we're able to do hard things because of the success formula that our forefathers established with us. And I think that's important today, that we understand we can do things by virtue of our pioneer forefathers and also by virtue of being children of our Heavenly Father.
Well, I don't think that the pioneers, that we call pioneers, really looked at themselves as pioneers. They were living day-to-day life, and they moved from one place to another. They were very dedicated. They had to remake society everywhere they went. That was just part of life for them. And I don't know as they called themselves pioneers. We call them pioneers. But they were men of vision. They were men of courage, dedication. They were men of grit, men who just saw something that needed to be done and went ahead and did it. So when you talk about a modern day pioneer is someone who has those same qualities, but is doing it in a totally different society, a totally different way of life.
Well, when I think about modern day pioneer, it's not used. The term's not used very much because when the pioneers were coming forward, they were coming out to an area that was undeveloped and making it better, breaking new ground and trying to make it a great place to be out of pretty much nothing. They were trying to develop it, and hopefully their kids would benefit from all the effort that they had. So I think a modern day pioneer just makes the place that they're living a better place to be, and not necessarily for their own benefit, but could be mostly for the generations that come after them. And I think that a modern day pioneer can do the same thing as a pioneer that might have crossed the plains if they take the surroundings that are around them and make it a better place to be, whether that's participating civilly, raising a great family, setting a good example, participating politically, all the things that frankly we've seen Lee Beatty do. I mean, my dad do throughout his time here in Hurricane and his whole life, actually.
What makes my father a pioneer is his commitment to serve those people around him. He has a good way of making it not about him. He always looks for a greater good. He looks for something outside of himself. He looks to make a difference in the world. Either my father really loves making monuments to preserve the past, or he just likes creating projects that give him an excuse to drive around on his tractor.
I believe they were just doing what was necessary, putting one foot ahead of the other, accomplishing the tasks that were daily in front of them. Their values of hard work, filling the back of the shovel, so to speak, honor, integrity, and caring for one another were some of the values that sometimes get lost in today's society. We have a program in the Sons of Utah Pioneers called Modern Day Pioneer, and we honor those modern day pioneers from time to time within our chapters for what they've given, how they've served the community, the church, the local chapter, and some of the things that they've done to emulate those pioneer attributes that we're trying to perpetuate amongst our youth and continue to spread.
The Modern Day Pioneer Award is given to people who have made an impact on their community or in their community, people who have made an impact wherever they are. And we feel like it's important for us to honor those people because those qualities are something that are disappearing in our society today, and they're qualities that need to be put in the forefront. And so we look for people who do that to help others see what they need to do to be their own modern-day pioneer.
My name is Alan Beatty. I'm a younger brother to Lee Beatty. Lee has always been anxious to serve. He's willing. He gets very passionate about things. I remember talking to him one time, and he said that he had 2 or 3 pairs of pigeons. And not long after that, it was 100 pair of pigeons, not because the pigeons had multiplied exponentially, but because he had decided he ought to have more pigeons. And that's kind of how he has served. He becomes very passionate about the things that he's doing, and has had some opportunities in his life to provide service in a lot of areas, both in the church and in the community, in the SUP, other places in his life. He's been a great example in his family.
Lee Beatty probably at this time is the best historian for the Hurricane Valley alive. He has a passion for not only his own history and his own ancestry that came to the valley, but all the stories of all the pioneers that came to here and settled and clawed out an existence out of this desert. He knows more about every aspect, from the canal company to the sheep ranch to the first explorers that came here, Father Escalante and then Parley P. Pratt. He knows and he just loves it. He loves the stories, and consequently that's put him in a place where he knows more than anybody else, and he's constantly being asked to be a speaker on the historical aspects of Hurricane Valley, because he's connected to all these great stories that he's learned and great historical studies that he's done. He lives his life a little differently. Things that maybe aren't more important to most of the people of Hurricane are very important to him, where he is participating in helping markers being put up and stories being collected, and going and visiting people that are at the end of stage of their lives, making sure that those stories are collected. He lives differently. He values all the great history that Hurricane has to offer, and so you see him being more involved in everything because of it, I think.
My father has always taught me something that he learned from my grandfather, and that is that you fill the back of the shovel. To fill the back of the shovel means you dig in deep and get a full load on your shovel when you're doing manual labor. Instead of just scraping at it, you dig in and you do the job. And that's the way I've been taught, and that's the way my brothers have been taught, and that's the way I'm now teaching my sons to work. If you're gonna work, you might as well do a great job. If you're gonna do the work, you might as well excel. You might as well accomplish something that can make a difference. And that is kind of a pioneer heritage trait. You dig in and you do it. As long as you're gonna be there anyway, you might as well do a great job. Any job worth doing is worth doing right.
Lee has always had a desire to be a better person, to be the very best that he could be. When I joined the Sons of Utah Pioneers, I was one of the very youngest members of this organization way back when, and I wanted other people that were close to my age that I felt would be really good in this organization and would be a blessing to it, and Lee was one of the first ones that I thought of. Shortly after he joined the SUP, he became president-elect, and then the next year became president, and the next year past president. Under Lee's leadership, we've done a lot of things. After he was in the presidency, he was asked to be over our monuments. One of the things the Sons of Utah Pioneers do in this area is erect monuments to different things that our pioneers have done. Lee was very instrumental in getting the Confluence Park monument put together, and that was a little more difficult than some because it had to be in two places. We put it up here at the close to where the old dump used to be, and then across the gorge in Laverkin we have another one that looks just exactly like it, so that people can see it over Confluence Park. Well put together. He just took so much time, so much of his own time, so much of his energy went into seeing that those things were done. And he helped produce quite a few monuments. Just for that alone, he needs to be honored as a modern day pioneer, because the hours he put in, the equipment that he used to do it, getting other people to help him put these things together, and never doing it with at least any public complaint that I ever heard. And I'm sure that there was plenty of opportunities to complain about something, but I never heard any of that from him. You go around the community and see the things that he was responsible for as far as a member of the Sons of Utah Pioneers, and you'll find that it is something well done. It looks beautiful, and it certainly honors the memory of the pioneer that or the area that we're trying to recognize. He took us on a trek up to Peter's Leap. I gained an appreciation of something I didn't know even existed. It was how pioneers got to this area, how in the world they got down with wagons and horses, and just an unbelievable story that Lee talked to us about. He has a way with words, and a number of times he gave presentations at our dinner meetings or when we were on treks. He's got a lot of insight, very wise man.
He has become very accepting of a lot of our ancestry and very proud of the lineage that we have. I do know that has followed Parley P. Pratt, the Southern expedition down here to southern Utah that was organized by Brigham Young, and Parley P. Pratt was put in charge of that. And some of the first settlement information from this area that came back to Salt Lake, and it was the precursor or the starting of some of the settlements down here. And Lee has chosen to make that a big part of his life as he's studied our family, studied our heritage, and he has a real anxious feeling about who he is and where he came from, and I've enjoyed that. He's actually one of our go-to guys in our family. When we have a question about who's who, we can usually call Lee and get the answer.
My father has always looked to the past to learn the lessons for today. And so often when we have a question or we're struggling through something, or if he's just given a talk in church, he'll always look back to lessons that were learned by those who went on before to gain examples of what they learned. Say, this is what their life was like, this is what they went through, and these are the lessons they learned, and this is how these lessons apply to us today. Being able to look to the pioneers who came before us and glean the lessons they learned, that's wisdom.
First of all, I would expect them to be a contributing part to the community as well as to their family. So many people I run into now, they're busy taking care of their own tribe. They don't want to do anything with anyone else. They don't want to spend time going out, working on projects, helping other people, those kind of things. With him, he's still right in there fighting and doing those things that need to be done, and I appreciate that, and I support him.
We didn't always get along as brothers. I'm a year and a half, year and 8 months younger than him, and he's always been a leader in my life, and I think I've enjoyed that, especially As we've gotten older, he's been a very good friend, and I've enjoyed that in our relationship. He's always been an example of the things that you ought to do and should do, and has the strength to carry them out, and I've appreciated that. I remember as a young man not being overly athletically inclined, but he always encouraged me to go out. I don't know that I would have played basketball had he not encouraged me to try out for the JV team. I liked football and so forth, but there's a lot of times he's encouraged me to do things that I thought were maybe beyond my abilities. And with his encouragement and support, and even in practice times, he would help me to see that I could do it.
I have loved Lee ever since I first got to know him as a little boy. I was a little boy. Just fun to be around. Somebody who knew what he wanted. If he didn't know what he wanted, he didn't act like it. He knew what he wanted, and he went out and got it. Lee is a person that I've been able to count on. Lee is a person who is honest to a fault, almost. He is willing to bless other people's lives in a way that very few people that I know have been able to do. They might want to, but Lee he's had the ability to be able to bless people's lives economically, spiritually. I understand he's a bishop now. That says a lot about who he has been. He's blessed my life. He's a very, very good friend.
After the First World War, in that era, society turned to not looking for the good and the honorable in our ancestors, in their forefathers, but to look for the negative, things that tear people down. And that's what's broadcast on the 5 o'clock news. That's all we hear about. And to honor those great events, I believe if we don't, we're depriving our grandchildren of the opportunity to know that they have a great heritage, that they need to know, whether they're new to Utah, new to the church, or whether they've been generations within the gospel, they need to know of the heritage they have and the good and honorable men and women that paved the way for them. Even though they were just doing what they had to do, they were great people and overcome so much more than of the physical than we'll ever have to, hopefully. And they need to know that they have honorable ancestors.
Lee's been willing to accept what's been given him in callings in the church, and been willing to serve in many capacities. I think he served 10 or 11 years on the High Council, and did an excellent job, but was very involved in the steak farm, in the managing of the steak farm, and I think that's guided him in the areas that he's served more recently as a counselor in a bishopric, and now within the last month has been called to serve as bishop of that ward, which I think all of the things that Lee has done, his missionary experiences, school, his study in the FBI school, I think that he is well prepared to serve. Has great compassion for people, and I think that he has the ability to lead and to affect lives. And I think that he'll always continue to do that. That just during the period of this calling won't end that. That he'll continue on and be a leader and a man of integrity, and continue to do well in his life and in his family. One other thing that I may mention is how important his family is to Lee. worked very hard this year, and does most years, in preparation for their family reunion, Lee and Clea and their children and grandchildren. No greats yet, I don't think, but that may come soon, before long. But that's a very important part of his life, and means a great deal to him. He's very passionate about the feelings that he has for his family, and I appreciate that. It's a great example to me and to others as to how he treats his family, and it's been very good for me.
Building monuments, connecting the younger generations to their pioneers of the past is all about leaving a legacy. It's about making a difference in the world today by leaving with them the wisdom and knowledge and lessons learned by those who have gone before.
Of all the men that I've known, I have more respect for Lee Beatty, my dad, than anybody else. I have a belief that I was not here by chance, that I got to pick where I came down to this earth, and even my parents. And I believe I chose wisely. He's 100% trustworthy. He is loving and caring, and has been the very perfect example of a man that I can follow.
The Sons of Utah Pioneers is always in search of new blood.
I'm honored to have Lee Beatty as my father. What a great man. I love you, Dad.
People need to understand the message. They need to take time away from their busy schedules to be appreciative, to be grateful. Father in heaven tells us that the only people that he gets mad at, the only ones that his wrath is kindled against, are those who do not acknowledge his hand in all things. I know that these valleys were settled for a purpose, that the church was established in the tops of the mountains where it could remain unfettered from the rest of the world for 50 years so it could get established. And that was allowed to happen by the hand of the Lord. I believe now we have a greater struggle in keeping the influences of the world out and instilling integrity and honor and service in the hearts of our children. And one way of doing that is to encourage younger people with families to be a part of the Sons of Utah Pioneers.